Today we're going to crack open a parenting guide from the 4th century. And what's wild is just how relevant its advice is for raising children in our modern world. You know, a world that's absolutely saturated with distractions. And believe it or not, the wisdom of John Chrysostom is surprisingly sharp.
Okay, so let's dive right in by meeting the enemy. For John Chrysostom, an early Christian leader they called the Golden Mouth because of his incredible speeches, the great corrupting force of his time, and maybe ours, was vanity. And yeah, he really didn't pull any punches when describing it.
But for Chrysostom, vanity wasn't just, simple pride or looking in the mirror a little too much. No, he saw it as something way more dangerous, a destructive force that looks beautiful, even enchanting on the outside, but is completely rotten on the inside. He called it a beautiful demon. So here's how he puts it. He wants you to picture a demon taking the form of this absolutely stunning woman, covered in gold and fine clothes, just captivating everyone who passes by. But the second she lures you inside, that beautiful illusion just vanishes, and what's left is this fiery, monstrous reality that shatters your mind. That, he says, is exactly how vanity works.
And Chrysostom gives this perfect, real-world example. Imagine a wealthy man who spends his entire fortune on these lavish public games. On the surface, the appearance is incredible, right? The crowd is roaring, they're calling him a Nile of gifts. But then, you look at the reality. Once the money's gone, that praise turns into mockery. The very same people who celebrated him now call him a fool, and all that glory just disappears into ashes and dust.
So, if vanity is this beautiful demon corrupting all of society, how in the world do you fight it? Well, Chrysostom argued that the real battleground isn't out there in the public square. Nope, it's in the soul of a child. That's where the future is either built or broken.
He came up with this really incredible metaphor to explain a parent's role. He said a child's soul is like a brand new city. The 5 senses, sight, hearing, touch, all of them, those are the gates into this city. And every single thought, every idea is a citizen living inside its walls. And here's where it all comes together. This is the absolute core of his philosophy. In this metaphor, the parent is the king of that city. See, you're not just a passive observer. No way. You're the architect, you're the lawmaker, you're the ruler who is responsible for establishing order and virtue inside your child's inner world right from the very beginning.
Okay, so if you're the king, what's your first move? Chrysostom says a good king must first and foremost defend his city's gates from all those corrupting influences trying to get in.
And he gets super practical here. He gives us clear, step-by-step guide for fortifying the main gates where vanity and vice could enter. And he focused intensely on 3: what a child says, what a child hears, and what a child sees.
So let's take the ears. To guard this gate, Chrysostom advised against filling a child's mind with what he called frivolous stories, what we might call distracting, empty entertainment. Instead, he urged parents to become master storytellers, sharing simplified but powerful biblical narratives, starting with the story of Cain and Abel, to build a foundation of moral understanding.
A story like Jacob and Esau, for instance, it wasn't just some bedtime story. For Chrysostom, it was a way to shape a child's imagination with stories of consequence, of virtue, and the complexities of human choice. This was like education through storytelling, super powerful.
And it was the same deal for the eyes. He was fiercely critical of the Roman theater, which he saw as a total source of corruption. But he offered this beautiful alternative. So what should a child look at? The wonder of the natural world, the sky, the sun, the stars, and the intellectual beauty you can find in books.
Okay, so you might be wondering, what's the point of all this? This intensive training, guarding the senses, curating stories. It sounds like a lot of work. But it all had a very specific purpose. It wasn't about creating a fragile, sheltered child. It was about creating a champion.
The goal here wasn't to build a bubble around a kid forever. The point was to train them, to make them mentally and spiritually tough, just like an athlete. This whole upbringing was a training regimen to build inner strength, discipline, and resilience. The idea was, by learning to overcome small temptations and master their impulses at home, they'd be strong enough to face the much bigger challenges of the world without getting corrupted by it.
But this training, it wasn't just for them. It wasn't just some personal journey. This spiritual athlete, forged through years of careful discipline, was being prepared for a purpose that reached way beyond themselves, one that would shape not just their own life,
but the very fabric of society.
So what was the end game? For Chrysostom, the culmination of this whole education was to raise a virtuous adult, someone prepared for life's biggest commitments, starting with the blessed marriage. He truly believed that a strong society is built on strong families, and that could only happen if children were raised with real intention, ready to form unions that would, in turn, raise the next generation in that very same virtuous way.
Right. So you hear all this, and you might think, okay, a 1600-year-old guide from a preacher in ancient Antioch, what does that have to do with me? But when you really look at its central challenge, it feels shockingly modern.
I mean, think about it. He was worried about the theater and frivolous stories. What do we have? We've got smartphones, social media feeds, and algorithms literally designed to be as addictive as possible. His central question still just hangs in the air. What are the gates to our children's souls? And as the kings of their inner cities, what laws are we writing?